Vice Chair Lanny Grant, for us to pledge.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this beautiful day you have given us. Father, we thank you for every household that's represented here this evening. Father, we just ask that you give us wisdom and guidance needed to do the work of the people of Camden County. For this we pray in your most glorious name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Signs all in your electronic prayers.
Roll call, David.
All commissioners are present.
So we need to add an item to the agenda. I'll make a motion to add item number 7 to the regular agenda.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Motion carried. Brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the agenda as amended.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Brings us to the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to set the minutes from the May 2nd public hearing and regular meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes from the minutes from the call meeting and the regular meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Minutes are approved. Brings us to presentations.
Yes, sir. The first presentation tonight is a proclamation recognizing the week of May 21st through the 27th as National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Camden County. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And now therefore be it resolved by the Camden County Board of Commissioners, in recognition of this event, we do hereby recognize the week of May 21st to the 27th as National Public Works Week, with the theme Connecting the World Through Public Works, and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions that they make protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. And we do have some personnel from Public Works. If you'd like to come up and we'd like to get a picture, if you could come down.
Get you the bunch shorts and then we'll. Get everything one step in.
Good friends.
If y'all just want to step right over here, I'm going to read the next one then. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Okay.
Next, we have a proclamation recognizing the week of May 21st to the 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, the members of the emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. and access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. The emergency medical services system consists of first responders, EMTs, paramedics, emergency and medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And now therefore be it resolved by the Camden County Board of Commissioners, in recognition of this event, we do hereby recognize the week of May 21st to the 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the EMS Strong theme, EMS Week, where emergency care begins. The Board of Commissioners encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And I believe we have some from Fire Rescue.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay.
Mr. Dick, you would step to everybody.
Right.
All right, this brings us to the quarterly financial report. Nancy?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. The first item I wanted to mention to you is I've provided you all with a copy of the fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report, which is at your desk. And it was an unmodified, clean audit with no findings. So that was filed on April 27th. And also regarding the quarterlies, I did send you all a copy via email of the quarterly report, and that will also be found on the finance webpage by tomorrow morning, if anyone's interested in seeing more detail. So again, this is a presentation of just a summary of the third quarter. So it's for the period of July 1st, 22 through March 31st of 23, and it's a 9-month period. And being a 9-month period, this is a summary of the revenues in the general fund. And in that it's 9 months, we're at the 75% mark, and that would be a $30 million of 75% of our $40 million budget. And our actuals to date are $34.4 million, which is 86% of revenues. And that's to be expected because we did have property taxes were due in January, and that is one of the largest parts of the revenues. And the actual for fiscal year 22, just for comparisons, was $34.1 million, and that was 93.5% of budget. And these revenues are made up of, again, property tax, and that's 95.8% of budget. And for comparison, in third quarter of fiscal year 22, we were at 102% of revenues at this point. Prior year taxes are at 65.5%. Sales tax is at 69%. And that is the second largest revenue source in the general fund. And it's on track to exceed the current budgeted revenue of $5 million by about 10% this year. And service charges, which mainly is the EMS ambulance billings, are at 82%. And the courts are at 62% of revenue collected. So the expenditures for the general fund, again, we're at 75% of budget. So the actual for fiscal year 23 as of March is $30.4 million, which puts us at 6% or 76% of budget. And the actual last year, we were at 71.7% of budget. And the reason that it's putting us just 1% over where we're supposed to be, the main reason is in general government, which as a whole is at just over 90% of budget, but that is wholly and fully caused by our health insurance claims and also the workers' comp claims. The health claims are at 177% of budget. And we budget for that $2.2 million. And as of the end of March, we had paid out just over $4 million in claims. So that really makes the general government reflect at 90% of budget. Public safety is under budget at 66%. The courts are at 71%. Public works and roads are at 73%. And special appropriations on your quarterly report, we always report that separately. And the main items in that is at 89% of budget. And it's made up of, one of the line items is the spaceport legal fees, and that's at just over $312,000. It's also transfers to 911 and capital improvements. That comes out of the special appropriation fund. And that's just the supplements that we send to 911 to fund 911 operations and also to fund our capital purchases. And also it comprises of EMS billing write-offs for the ambulance billing. So just in summary for the general fund, the total budget for fiscal year 23 is $39,968,202. And we're at $34.4 million in revenues and $30.4 million in expenditures for a difference of about $4 million. And last year at this time, we had a positive variance of almost $8 million. And most of that difference in that there's a reduction in the net expenditures is just all of our increases, mostly the salary increases, and of course, the health insurance claims. And this again is expenditures for the general fund. And it might be easier, you've got a copy of the PowerPoint there, so it might be easier to see it on that. But it summarizes all the expenses into, one of them is salaries and benefits. And that's a 16% increase over last year at this time. And again, it has to do with the salary increases. And for this purposes, in that our health claims are so high, I did separate that out. Usually I put that together with the salary and benefits, but that is an 85% increase over last year at this time. Contracted services are down about almost 15%. And that's mostly due to reduction in spending for spaceport, because that is where that was summarized in contracted services. Supplies and materials have increased by about 12%, and most of that is just inflationary and cost increases. Our insurance and property tax has only increased about 6% overall from last year, but we're looking at fiscal 24 budget right now, and it might be, and it will be, significantly different in fiscal year 2024. We know already that there's a 25% increase on our property tax, and our liability insurance is currently $343,000, and that's all of our liability insurances. And we may even be receiving a notice from Travelers Insurance for non-renewal. And if that happens, we could expect our insurance premium probably to go from 343 to potentially even over $1 million. So that it'll be a big change in fiscal year 24. The transfers, transfers to 911 and capital improvements, that's almost, we're funding that almost double of what we did last year. That's why it's showing us almost 100% increase. Our transfers, which are intergovernmental, what that means is things, we fund DFACs, we fund the public defender's office, the district attorney's office, and that's up 5%. Our capital costs, it's a reduction of 87%, but it's really just going from 72,000 to 9,000. It was just a minor purchase. And our Medicare accounts receivable adjustments are up 10%, and we have no debt service on the general fund. So the next area is curbside collections. And the total budget for curbside is $1,470,590. The revenues to date are $1.2 million, which is almost 82% of revenues collected. And that does include, in addition to the billings, it includes $291,000 of insurance premium tax. And we allocate that to subsidize curbside to keep the rates lower in this current fiscal year. And I know that right now we're talking about for next fiscal year that we will not be subsidizing it, so the rates did increase. The expenditures to date are at 76.8% or $1.1 million. The difference is favorable of 71,566, and last year it was 43,441 at this time. Emergency 911. The budget is $1.7 million. The revenues collected to date are $964,015, which is 56% of budget. And that does include a transfer in from the general fund of over $272,000 to balance the budget. And the reason it's reflected at 56% is it's 2 months in arrears. So they're actually very much on track to be at or just above budget by the end of the year. And the expenditures are at 54% of budget at $923,000. And the difference, of course, is $40,479. And just the operating revenues, which do not include the transfer in from the general fund, are at 60%. The next fund is the Unincorporated Service District Fund, which has a budget of $4,288,571. The revenues to date are almost $2.3 million, which is 52.9% of budget. The expenditures are $3.6 million or 84.1% of budget. The revenues do include the other piece of the insurance premium tax is the majority of it is allocated to this unincorporated service district to fund the fire department. And that includes in revenues $994,000. And also the expenditures being at 84.1%, that includes capital equipment, which is we have purchase orders out for, and it's $1.8 million, which are 2 pumper trucks, 3 tankers, the hydraulic tools, and we've already purchased a truck for the fire chief. So right now the difference is $1.3 million negative, and we have budgeted on the unincorporated fund to use fund balance. We know that we're going to do it, so that'll be reflected at year end. The next fund is the Solid Waste Fund, and their budget is $6.7 million. And to date, we've received $2.6 million at 38.6% of budget. But it's worth noting that the C&D and the MSW, the actual operating revenues, are at 79% of budget. But that's also after a reduction we made to the budget, I believe it was in January, to reflect the loss or the attrition of a major customer. So, but with the adjusted budget, they are just over the 75% mark. The expenditures to date are just over $4 million, which is 60% of the budget. And again, on solid waste, we have budgeted to use $3.5 million in fund balance this year for capital purchases and also cell number 8 construction. And also it's worth noting that we do have a fund for reserve for closure. And right now it's funded at $6,580,000. And so we don't touch that money. That is definitely for just the reserve for closure costs. And the Two Rivers Gun Range, the budget for fiscal year 23 is $300,000. The revenues to date are $189,000 with expenditures of $292,000. And that expenditure does include depreciation. So that's not all operating costs. So there are non-operating costs in there. And the range opened in November of 21. So I just did a comparison of the November 21 to March 22, what the sales were, to November 22 to March of 23, that 5-month period. And the sales have increased 31%. And I think we were expecting that it wouldn't necessarily be profitable in the beginning, but it is definitely showing increases in sales. And this is a summary of the SPLOST 8. So far, we've received $39 million, which over the 45 months that have gone by, average $870,000 per month. But in the last 9 months, we've been averaging almost close to $1,991,000. So it really has trended upwards over that period of time. And this is the level, just a summary of the level 2 project expenditures. They've either been purchased or there's requisitions for them out there. And just a couple of them, the public safety radio communication is $1 million, and that has been spent. Ambulances of $1.2 million. The Superior Court records, I believe that's a $550,000 on the referendum. We've spent almost $85,000 so far. Property acquisition was a partial funding of the Georgia Power Building, which is now going to be the Resiliency Center. The library has received $102,000. I believe it was a roof repair and other repairs. And you could just, the other big one, of course, is the distribution to the cities in the PSA, and that was almost $20 million. And these are a list of the actual county projects. And the referendum for road projects was $4,155,000. And so far, we've only spent, well, it's not an only, we have spent $547,000. And that was for LMIG match and just road projects. So that leaves almost 87% left for the remainder of the SPLOST. Building and renovations, the referendum was $2.9 million. And so far, we have spent $129,000. However, majority of that is allocated from, the plan is for the fleet and public works building. We're budgeting $2.1 million at the time of the referendum. And the last category is vehicles, technology, and equipment. And at this point, that is fully committed. We've spent $677,000 on vehicles. For the sheriff's office, $966,000, and that's the enterprise lease. So that's the full committed price over the 5 years of the lease. Technology of $955,000, heavy machinery and equipment of $2.3 million, and the radio communication project of $633,000. So that is fully committed. But I know that I've mentioned at other meetings, I believe that we'll reach the 55 million referendum amount probably by July or August of next year. So the SPLOST would continue for another 10 or 12 months. So we could potentially have an excess of 10 to 12 million at that period of time. But at this point, we haven't recognized that revenue, but it's important to know that. And this is just a summary of the ARPA revenue and expenditures. So of course, we all know we received $10.6 million. And our expenditures to date are $2,341,000. And we've also encumbered $2.6 million for a total of almost $5 million either committed or spent. And the list there, I just picked the ones that the total cost so far was over $50,000. So some of the items are the thank you awards. I believe that was one of the first things we did. That was $542,000. It was a payment made to employees. Physical security system of $94,000, tasers of $84,000. And if you go to the quarterly report, which will be posted online tomorrow, it'll be a full list of the expenditures and the projects that we've talked about coming out of that money. And at this point, if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
How much money is left in the ARPA fund?
At this point, we've, as part of the budget committee, we had talked about spending about $225,000 on some capital purchases. We haven't presented the budget yet, but that was part of the discussion. So if I take that out of there, we're left with about $115,000.
Okay.
Of ARPA money that's not committed. Any other questions?
Anybody got any questions for Nancy?
No, I don't.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
$115,000. Test later, Mom. All right, this brings us to the public comment section. We'll limit it to 3 minutes and on agenda items only.
Mr. Ricky
Anybody
May.
rest?
Rick Madden from Bullhead. You don't need that light. I ain't gonna be for 30 seconds. On the SWA tipping fees, here we go again, y'all. Adding an extra tax again on people in this county. Start off with, tipping fees need to go to all these out of county people hauling sludge and everything else to our landfill. Y'all running a commercial enterprise out there, but the taxpayers are taking the burden. To start off with, we should never be paying a tipping fee, people that are actually paying the curbside and are citizens in this county. We should be able to pull up to that dump, show that we have paid curbside and showed our license or whatever we need to do that we're in this county and dump our little bit of trash that we don't want to shove in a can and break into pieces. This is ridiculous, folks. Anything y'all find, we just, a few months ago gave $300,000 out of general fund? But now you want to increase us again. You just increased us twice this year already. Lord, y'all get a hold of yourselves and charge the people that's out there dumping sludge and other toxic stuff that most of us don't know about, but we're fixing to find out about because investigations from the public are going to start. And the SWA is going to be held accountable. And y'all should have been holding them accountable for what they're spending and what you're charging these citizens. Let's look out for the people in Camden, not these other people. We're the one footing the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else registered? Anybody else from the public wish to speak before the board?
Timothy Best, good evening, Commissioners. Just a question. I heard in Ms. Nancy's presentation that the insurance was probably going to be increased over $1 million for 300,000 from 300,000. Any explanation why the insurance, them not willing to renew the insurance, and why would it cost so much? That's my question.
Stick around. We'll talk to you after the meeting. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to our regular agenda. This is item number 1, swearing in a code enforcement officer.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Trayvon DeMarcus Simmons. He's going to be our Animal Control Code Enforcement Officer, and he's already hit the ground running. I understand he's already received his certification. So we'd like to congratulate him on that. And tonight is going to be his swearing in and his appointment as a full Animal Control Officer of Camden County. Mr. Simmons, would you raise your right hand? And after I have read the oath, you just say, "I do," or "I will." Thank you. All right, this is the appointment of Trayvon DeMarcus Simmons. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will well and faithfully uphold and execute the constitutions and laws of the United States and the state of Georgia, and to the best of your ability enforce the regulations and ordinances of Camden County, Georgia, and as an employee of the county that you are not the holder of any undistributed public funds? All right, thank you. Mr. Simmons, if you'll sign right here, accepting your commission. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard. This brings us to item number 2, intergovernmental agreement with the city of Kingsland for providing gasoline and diesel fuel for public equipment. In this, on part of our package, item paragraph 5, we need to add "to the extent permitted by Georgia law" at the beginning of that paragraph. Can I get a motion on this with this addition?
I make the motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second? I'll second it.
Discussion.
Sure.
What's this pertaining to exactly?
Yes.
Gas and diesel, if it's basically a backup for if our pumping station at our main fire depot goes down, we
Okay.
can use City of Kingsland's.
Gotcha.
But it's only for emergency
Yeah.
purposes.
Okay.
It's not everyday operation.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. This brings us to item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be myself conducting this update for you all. As you're all aware, the Georgia General Assembly has completed its first of its 2-year term. There were several bills introduced affecting county and city governments. I'm gonna wait till Scott gets this approved. One of the biggest pieces, it's not necessarily highlighted within my PowerPoint, but the state and within its amended fiscal year 2023 budget, it included a $950 million grant to bring back the homestead tax relief grants. This funding can be used for property taxes on each homesteaded property. It's a $500 grant back to the property owner if their property is homesteaded. So there's a lot of complexities with how that is going to work. It's going to be channeled through the tax assessor and tax commissioner's office. The state Department of Revenue is working with all of those within all the counties to try to figure out exactly how that process is going to work. It's a very complex process. So further details coming on that, but Scott, if you can go to the next slide. So the first one we're going to highlight, there's several of these, and I've sent you all the update. It's actually within the packet itself, but one big one that we actually had within our state legislative priorities is the truck weight increase. This was House Bill 189. This did pass and it is already effective. It became effective May 3rd of this year, but it increases the allowable weight limit for trucks from 84,000 pounds to 88,000 pounds. And it also increases the variance from 5% to 10% for the vehicles hauling mostly agricultural. But for us, what's really going to impact us is the forest products. We don't have too many of the chicken farms or just any other agricultural, whether it's corn, cotton, those types of products. So what we're going to get hit with more so is the logging industry. This also restricts vehicles receiving the 10% variance from traveling within a 150-mile radius. And it also allows local law enforcement to enforce the weight limits. However, the deputies or police officers will have to undergo some training from the state just to make sure that they know how to enforce those regulations and issue those citations. Next slide. The next one is this was actually part of a constitutional amendment that happened, it was actually passed in November of 2022. This is providing local governments the opportunity to provide a tax relief in actually federally declared disaster areas. This is House Bill 311, and this is actually already in effect as well. It was actually effective March 16th, but it's only applicable to property tax assessments that are issued on or after April 1st of this year. So, it's still yet to be determined if we actually have any federally named disasters, and we pray that we do not. But this authorizes local governments to adopt a resolution to provide for temporary tax relief to majorly damaged or destroyed properties for the taxable year in which the disaster occurred. If the government chooses to pass this resolution, the total dollar amount of the property tax relief and the method which the relief shall be applied must be stated within that resolution. It also requires that the EMA directors establish rules and procedures for identifying buildings and facilities and how this is going to be applied to those facilities for that relief. The tax commissioner's office will use the consolidated damage report from the emergency management agency to identify those corresponding tax parcels and the properties that are affected and issue any type of credit to or reduction of property tax to those property owners. It also allows for an appeal process through the EMA if a property is potentially missed. They can notify the EMA director, and then the EMA director will then go out, assess that property, and just add that into the actual information sent to the tax commissioner. And if any of you have any questions on any of this, in the meantime, please feel free to interrupt me. Go on to the next one, Scott. The next one, which we had, I don't know that it was on our recent state legislative priority list, but we have discussed this in the past. This is House Bill 254. This will become effective July 1 of this year. This is to modify legal organ requirements. This really provides that anytime that a local government send an ad to the legal organ, and the legal organ, if they make a mistake or anything like that, it provides for provisions to remedy that. It also allows the governments to provide the notice on their website, a website maintained by the legal organ, on a website maintained by a separate newspaper, maybe not the actual legal organ itself, or on the Georgia Public Notice website. And if an error is made within that publication, the legal organ, again, on their website, they have 2 days to fix that error. Same thing for us as far as the website. It also increases the legal advertisement fees from $10 to $15 for each 100-word insertion for the first 4 insertions, and from $9 to $14 for each additional 100-word insertion. Next page, Scott. There were several election bills that passed, and then there was even more that did not pass. There's quite a few listed within that full document. I'm just highlighting a brief few of these, but House Bill 572 and Senate Bill 129, those both become effective July 1 of this year. Senate Bill 222 is already in effect. That one was effective May 3rd. The House Bill 572 changes the name to the State Ethics Commission, and also allows for punishment of election superintendents who do not file disclosure reports. Senate Bill 129 has many revisions, but mostly authorizing members of county boards of elections and registration to serve on election performance review boards. It changes the wording required on absentee ballot application solicitations sent by non-election officials. It also allows employees to take time off during early voting periods. Changes the time in which election officials submit number of ballots cast on election day. I think currently it's 10 p.m. They're extending that to midnight. It also requires election superintendents to conduct pre-certification tabulation or risk limiting audits on one contest, each election, special election, primary election, or special primary election, as well as those runoffs thereafter. Senate Bill 222 prohibits county governing authorities or any other employees from accepting a contribution, donation, service, or anything else of value for the purpose of conducting an election. Next slide. This was actually on our state legislative priority list. This is the dedication of all hazardous waste trust fund fees. We've actually had this on there a couple of times. This will take effect July 1st of this year. And Commissioner Brandt also served as the chairman for the policy committee for DNR for ACCG, which really assisted in kind of getting this pulled across.
This week to another term.
Congratulations. So we're definitely appreciative of his service there. But this actually dedicates all of the state hazardous waste management fees and hazardous substance reporting fees to the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund, which is something that ACCG has been working on for quite a while with the state. The two fees collect about $1.4 million annually. It also ensures that all these fees that contribute to the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund are statutorily dedicated to that fund. And then Senate Bill 95 is just another one that was passed. It's a Solid Waste Trust Fund. This is for tire fees collected from distributors. What this does is it changes that fee being received from, or collected, from the, rather than collecting it from the distributors,
No.
collecting it from the distributors from the retailers, there. Next slide. This is another one we did not have this year, however, we did have it last year. This is the digital goods taxation. This will not take effect until January 1st of next year. But this bill expands sales tax and use to digital goods, basically including things like downloadable books, games, or movies. But this would only apply to permanently purchased items, nothing that you're renting or anything like that. It would have to be something that you would permanently keep. It also creates a tax commissioner retirement plan with a state-funded match. And this is basically for those counties that do not offer current retirement plans. There were several other bills that passed, just a few to highlight. House Bill 121, we may see this, especially with some of our rural roads. This allows tags for multi-purpose off-highway vehicles. House Bill 227 is criminal damage to critical infrastructure, allowing for citing of criminal damage for those infrastructures that we have. Senate Bill 146 is the electric vehicle charging stations regulation and tax as that comes online. Senate Bill 193, this is through DCA broadband services, just determining those eligible locations for state or federal funding. Senate Bill 1, counties cannot require proof of vaccination, and they actually modified this to be indefinitely. So there's no end date now, it's just indefinite. Senate Bill 55, there's no local regulation on children's businesses. I thought that one was kind of interesting. I don't know how many of those we have. We have to ask Joey that one. I just thought that was interesting. Senate Bill 515, local governments required to remove property records for law enforcement officers. Senate Bill 213, counties must allow non-conforming mobile homes to be replaced with new ones. And House Bill 88, this is a Coleman-Baker Act. This requires law enforcement to review cold case murders if requested. There were a few study committees that were kicked up this General Assembly. One is Senate Resolution 147, which creates a Senate Study Committee on local option sales tax. Whenever we went through this last year with the cities, and anytime we do this, it tends to cause a lot of just negative back and forth between the county and the cities. And ACCG and GMA have both asked the General Assembly to really look at that legislation and how those negotiations go to try to figure out a better way to actually work together to achieve a better outcome. This is actually the same thing for Senate Resolution 157, which is a joint study committee on the service delivery strategy. This also, from time to time, will spur up some negative conversations between the county and cities. So the state's really trying to take a better look at, how can they better streamline those services to where it doesn't pit the cities against the county or the county against the cities. The last one is Senate Resolution 155. This is a Senate committee for studying the truck driver shortages throughout the state. And there were several bills that failed to pass. I'm just going to highlight just a few of them. There's many more in the document, but in elections, there were several that did not pass. I'm not going to read off all of these, but they were just all across the board, whether it was security requirements, trying to reduce cost of the elections. And one of the bigger ones, there's actually, we used to be in this predicament, Senate Bill 212. Prior to the county's consolidation of the Board of Elections and Registration, we used to have our probate judge serving as the election superintendent. There's still about, I think, upper 20s, maybe even 30 counties within the state that have that. And this was just a big push by the probate judges to shed that, just mainly due to the amount of scrutiny and requirements that have come along with the new election system. Other ones that did not pass that we actually had on our legislative priorities was the Georgia EMS Reform Act, the mental health reform, and there's just a few of these others that deal with either COLAs, constitutional supplements, and then there was also a couple that we've dealt with in the past, mainly regarding new landfills or landfill permits. Neither of those passed. Also for planning and developments, House Bill 514 and 517, both of these were housing preemptions on local governments dealing with design standards, zoning and permitting moratoriums, as well as just standard lot sizes, minimum square footage, and, other information. I think that's pretty much my update if I have any questions.
No, but I'd like to emphasize that Camden County, and of course I serve on the committee and everything, we were strictly opposed to the truck weight limits because it
Yes.
destroys county roads with no return back to us for the destruction that it causes. So.
And I will add one other item that we did have, and we have submitted all of the documentation to Representative Stephen Sains for the hotel motel tax. So that unfortunately did not get filed this assembly. However, it will be filed next assembly. So we'll probably see that take effect probably July of next year. He has all the information. We shouldn't have to do any other advertisements other than his advertisement he'll have to do for introduction of local legislation.
All right, thank you, Sean.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sean, and I'm really not real sure about all this, but the House Bill 520, the mental health reform did not pass.
No, sir. The state made a really big push a couple years ago, and actually last year in the 2022 General Assembly. That's when the main Mental Health Reform Act was passed. There was a lot of really good things that came out of that one. They were looking at increasing some of those just adding a few more things to that, and it just didn't pass. And I think part of the reason is because you had a complete change in leadership in both the House and the Senate. So I think there was they wanted to take a little bit more time to look at it, is my understanding. Because this was the very first session that they had this year. It'll come up again next year.
Okay, because in the overview of amended 2023 and 2024 budgets, it's got Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities, and then it's got $6,288,000 going to one group or one person. I looked on our stuff, and I know in our community, this is still a huge issue.
Right.
And I want to make sure we all know that. I don't know, I don't have the answers at this point, but it looks like other communities are getting this kind of funding for those issues. The one thing that we don't have is a live-in. We don't have a place to take someone if they really are in trouble. We either have to go to Brunswick and beg for a bed or go to Jacksonville and beg for a bed. So I'd like to see us move forward with something like that. Just a statement.
Anybody else got any questions for Sean? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4.
Good evening. I'm requesting approval to submit a grant to GEMA for a drought study in the amount of $22,500. The county will use the funds to hire a consultant to develop the study and provide the following service: assessment of existing conditions, water source inventory and mapping, develop strategies to reduce ISO rating, and reduce insurance premium for residents. This study is important to the residents of Camden County as it will identify additional water sources that will reduce turnaround time of tanker trucks during a fire. Also, citizens may be more protected with additional water sources as the sources will be closer in proximity, and this may reduce property damage. A 25% match of $7,500 is required. I am requesting approval to submit application as presented.
Okay, can I get a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Okay. One of y'all want a second?
Second.
Okay, got a first and second. This is to submit the submittal for a drought study planning grant. This will help out with our ISO rating, hopefully. We got a first and second. Any discussion? No. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Great. I'm requesting approval of the grant award in the amount of $13,639 for Emergency Management Performance Grant from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. The purpose of this grant is to provide opportunities to enhance the local emergency management agency by providing funds for administration, preparedness activities, exercise, and training. Funds will be used to cover a portion of the EMA director's salary. Staff recommends approval as presented.
Can I get a motion on this item?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
I brought the check.
You want a picture?
Yep.
Picture. Let's check. Picture. Guys like Ben, get the back. Stay with that. No work. All right, this time we need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and convene a solid waste authority meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Motion carries. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we adopted the agenda for solid waste authority. All right, can I get a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 21st?
Motion to approve the February 21st, 2022 Solid Waste Authority meeting minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a first and second to accept the minutes. All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, this brings us to the first public comment section. This is just for comments for the Solid Waste Authority agenda items only. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. This brings us to item number 1. Consideration of increasing the tipping fees for fiscal year 2024 on all materials accepted at municipal solid waste and the C&D landfills.
Good
Turn
evening,
it over to
gentlemen.
you.
Good
Thank
evening,
you.
gentlemen. This agenda item is for your consideration to approve increasing the solid waste department tipping fees for in-county materials by 2.5% and 5% for out-of-county materials for fiscal year 2024. The tipping fees for tires also need to be increased. We currently lose revenue each time scrap tires are picked up. Tires that are brought to the landfill have to be turned into a state certified recycler per EPD regulations. The minimum charge that we pay at this time for just 1 ton of tires is $3,984. That covers the freight and container drop fees, and the tire recycler charges $250 per ton for scrap tires. We average about 16 tons of tires per disposal event. Because we rely solely on tipping fees to support all aspects of our department, these increases are necessary due to the rising costs of operating the landfill. I believe y'all were given a package that shows the first 10 months of this current fiscal year and what the differences would be for the 2.5% for the in-county increase and for the 5% for the out-of-county increase. We do make most of our revenue through the MSW landfill. Tires, on the tires, I did do an increase. We get a lot of tires. We only take in-county tires at this time. We don't accept any commercial tires. And like I said, that excuse me just a minute. Let me find my paperwork. The current EPD approved tire recycler states that the freight and drop fees are increased every calendar year. I did some checking around on different areas within the county and their tires and rates for tires. Tire Kingdom in St. Mary's only accepts passenger car tires, and they charge $3 a tire. They don't take any tires with rims. Tire Mart in Kingsland charges $5 for passenger tires with no rims and $15 for all other tires. Mavis Tires in Kingsland and Charlton Tire in Folkestone don't accept any tires from residents. As just a comparison, I called Chester Island, and Chester Island only takes tire shreds. They don't take any residential tires. Does anybody have any questions?
Been there, done that, I know.
Yes. And, since we're self-supporting, don't get any tax dollars, it's imperative that we raise the rates at this time.
If you add all these together, I mean, whatever's in red, I've never worked out there, that's Laney. I meant to ask him before the meeting, but I didn't get to. You're looking at $145,000 and $145,037 and then 87 cents. What does that do for the landfill? I mean, what would you use that money for? That'd be salaries or?
Everything.
Everything across the board.
Because it is total enterprise. It gets no tax dollars whatsoever to operate off of.
Right.
So
And we need $145,000 at the landfill, right?
We need a lot more than that. We need a lot more than that. Our, everything, all our supplies, our insurance, our salaries, our repairs, our equipment, anything, computer supplies is all paid for through the tipping fees collected at the landfill. We don't see any tax dollars whatsoever. So, we all try very hard to watch our budget. And, this year, unfortunately, we did lose a big customer that decided to start using a landfill that was closer to them in Jacksonville than coming here. But we do also make most of our revenue from out of county and not in county. There's just not enough businesses to support the landfill.
I was listening to what Ricky said.
Yes,
So
sir.
you're saying that mostly our guys, our folks here don't go and do that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Some of them do, yeah. We do get in-county customers, but as far as the materials that are brought in, because they're charged more, the types of materials they bring in, he was talking about sludge. There's a special waste program that we have to follow through EPD. And every time we have a customer that wants to bring sludge to the landfill, they have to fill out a special waste application and provide an analytical of the material that shows everything that's in that sludge. And then I submit it myself to our engineers, and the engineering firm is the one that looks over and says, yeah, you can take this at the landfill, or no, you can't take this at the landfill. We're also prohibited from taking more than 10% of our total tonnage of sludge. So I have to monitor how much sludge is coming into the landfill every quarter because we can't take more than 10%.
also as an enterprise fund, all the equipment, all the fuel, the electricity, everything is paid through the enterprise fund. Nothing is paid, even though it's handled through the finance department up here, the money comes up here, but it's all enterprise fund. There's no tax dollars. And it has to go up just like everything does. A little bit by little bit in order to stay in line and continue to operate as an enterprise fund.
And our rates are still much lower than the Chester Island landfill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Chester Island, for instance, for right now, for our residential MSW in county is $24.74 per ton. Now, that does include a 75-cent per ton EPD fee that we have to immediately, we're billed once a year from EPD that we have to set aside that 75 cents a ton to be paid to the EPD. Whereas we're $24.74 a ton, Chester Island is $35.61 a ton for the same material.
A pickup truck that brings stuff to the landfill.
Yes, sir.
What is it? How many tons?
Oh, they probably wouldn't have a ton on the pickup truck. You probably
Yeah.
average,
About $15.
$5, $6 for.
Yeah,
pickup.
it's
It's just a fraction over a penny a pound.
I look
Yeah.
at it that way.
Our tipping fees are the lowest probably in this region. I mean, they really are.
Can we get a motion on this item?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to our final public comment for the Solid Waste Authority. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none. This time we need a motion to adjourn the Solid Waste Authority meeting and reconvene the regular meeting.
Make the motion, we adjourn the Solid Waste Authority meeting, turn the air conditioning off, and resume the regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. All right, this brings us back to Miss Sue. Where'd you go?
I'm ready.
Okay. You can do it all over again.
Okay. In closing, I just want to request that the increases be authorized by the board.
Can we get a motion on this item?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
First and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I second my motion to turn the air conditioning off. Freezing up here.
We got it pointed at you.
You got a what?
We got it pointed at you.
All right.
I think it is.
This brings us to item number 7, the no-cost summer camp. Get a motion on this item?
Let's see if I can read it right. Motion to approve the proposal for the no-cost summer camp for 1 week per child for 30 children provided by the Camden County at the Public Service Authority.
Get a second?
I'll second.
For discussion purposes, you know, we don't identify where the funds are coming from. That's why I asked Ms. Nancy how much was in ARPA. But we're not talking about a whole lot of money.
Actually talking about $4,350, I think, somewhere around there. Will this be, subject to any, here's my concern. I'd like to see children who wouldn't have this opportunity have first crack at it, as opposed to children of substantial means. Is there any way to do that?
Oh, there's actually, let's see where, in the form, there is a,
Household income.
yeah, they want you to give your annual household income. But my question on this is, what is the limit? There's,
Yeah, how's it gonna be
it's
interpreted?
blank.
Yeah,
The-
but
Somebody
who's gonna
needs
say
to
this one or
determine
that one?
what the income limit is.
My understanding is that they're gonna be utilizing they're gonna be utilizing the same kind of, just proofing as like the SNAP program that it runs, like for the SNAP benefits from the
Mhm.
federal government. So, DFAX uses that, the federal government uses that. That's my understanding based off of all of our meetings, is that's what they're gonna be measuring that by.
And that effectively will achieve
Yes, sir.
the thing that I spoke to is making sure that we're not, putting kids in there whose parents could afford anything they wanted to afford, and
Right.
those children who's in less fortunate situations. And there are plenty of them, Mr. Besson, are there not? Thank you.
Well, they might should state that somewhere on their,
That needs to be
Participation.
conveyed to the public very clearly, because I think we have a group of people that have tried before and they've gotten frustrated. I think there were swimming lessons that were offered on that basis, and they filled up very quickly, and the Beamers and the Cadillac Escalades and all of those cars were dropping those kids off. Let's give everyone an opportunity to have these experiences. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And we actually have a group, Timothy being one of them, that's that's overseeing this. It's not just thrown out there. We're actually going to continue. It's a work in progress, but it is a way to spend the ARPA funds that actually helps the community.
I have no problem doing it. I just would like to see some clarification on that.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
I think that
Besson,
can
does
happen.
this adequately address it, in your opinion, as a provider of those services?
Yes, sir, it does. What Mr. Boatwright said, there is a process in place that we have to qualify those individuals and identify those particular families that fall in that category based upon the household income.
And you're involved in that process?
Yes, sir, I am.
And that's all the confidence I need to have in it. Thank you very much for your efforts, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any more discussion? Got a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. This brings us to reports. Boatright?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've got a few updates. First off, with just an employment update. So we've got two individuals I'd really like to highlight, both coming out of the Planning and Development Office. So our building inspector, Petey Kemp, this weekend, he received, and by the way, he's the very first individual in the county to ever receive this recognition or certification, but he received his International Code Council Commercial Building Inspector certification, which I don't know how many countless hours he put into studying for that. Countless. I have no idea how many hours it would be. Joey could further elaborate on that, but just very, very proud of him and his accomplishment. I think that's a major benefit to us here in the community as well as our builders. I know Commissioner Reddick, you're probably very familiar with that potential certification and what that means to the county. Also, our CRS program manager, Sarah Long, she also received her certified floodplain manager certification, I believe yesterday. I think she passed her test yesterday, so very, very proud of her and her accomplishment. This will assist us obviously in the future as we certify any properties that have any kind of flood plain management necessary for them. Our new Deputy County Administrator, Seth Collins, he'll be starting on Monday of next week, so you'll have the opportunity to interact with him a little bit whenever we do our work session next Tuesday on the budget. So also just kind of going into the budget work session, you know, Nancy had mentioned earlier about the insurance cost, and you know that's really kind of an unknown right now as far as the bottom line of the budget, because we have not got those renewals or expected rates of what those renewals will be. It's mainly on the general liability side, the LEL, the law enforcement liability, and just any other general liability that the county has and insurance. With the number of just occurrences that we've had, stemming mainly just from one area within the county, and how many claims that we've had, really just in settlements and just the constant claims that we get, it's really scary to potentially receive a letter of non-renewal. We're still trying to work through that, but if that does happen, our concern is that, you know, it could potentially cost us as high as 7 figures, rather than, you know, the 300,000 that we're paying now. So that's the big concern. So that's just an unknown. We'll talk about that a little bit more throughout the whole budget overview as that comes next week. Hopefully we'll have some a much more positive update on the general liability insurance cost. The landfill is also going to be hosting their 29th annual Kids Fishing Derby on Saturday, June 10th, 2023. From 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. If there's anybody that has children 16 and under, please, you know, you're invited to come out there and participate. It's a wonderful event. Really benefits our youth in the community. The airport justification study, Hanson Consulting, they're going to be sending that to GDOT for their review and feedback. So hoping to get that back. Any kind of feedback that GDOT has, we'll bring that forth to you. Blake Swafford, the gentleman that did the financial study, he'll come back before us and do just an update on what the justification study means, how it will impact the opportunity for us to build a new airport here within the county. And then the administrator's brief has been posted online today. We should have another email going out this evening after the meeting, just announcing that it's available for public review. Please, if you have not seen that document, please take the time to look through that. It's really an amazing update to the public as far as what your county is doing for you, for all of our departments, as well as major projects that we've got going on, whether it's capital or even infrastructure related. So that's my update. I'll take any questions that you have.
Airport's ready to look good.
Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for Sean? Seeing none, this brings us to the final public comment for the Board of Commissioners. It will limit it to 3 minutes. Are there any registered speakers? Anybody from the public wish to speak for the board?
Timothy Best, good evening, again, County Commissioners. Here to speak, concerning mental health. And, I think there was about 3 suicides reported in our community over the last 3 months. That's alarming in a small community such as Camden County. At your meeting 2 weeks ago, you issued a proclamation declaring the month of May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month. In the proclamation, you resolved that you will continue a commitment to partner with our community members to ensure that all mental health services are accessible, valuable, and culturally appropriate for all residents. We are glad that you are committed to assuring that mental health services are accessible to all residents because we know that there are inequities in access. For example, the American Psychiatric Association reported in 2017 that only 1 in 3 African Americans who need mental health care receives it, and that African Americans often receive poor quality of care and lack access to culturally competent care. We all know that the budgets are moral documents, or as Matthew 6:21 puts it, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. So now we would like to know how you plan to allocate resources to make good on your commitment. 2 years ago, we offered 5 suggestions about how to use the $10.6 million of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds that the county received under the American Rescue Plan Act. Among these suggestions was that you allocate funds to support mental health treatment and provide relief for those experiencing homelessness. We made that suggestion 2 years ago. While you did not follow the suggestions for the first tranche, you still can allocate some of the remaining funds to support mental health treatment now. We encourage you to do that. You could begin by allocating funds to provide staff support to revive the Camden Criminal Justice Council that you initiated. Amend the resolution setting up the council to be able to appoint mental health providers, school counselors, and other relevant community members to the council. Have the council take full advantage of the free resources available from the National Institute of Corrections to provide advice on building diversion programs and so on, to be able to place the estimated 44% of jail inmates who are suffering from a mental health illness in facilities that are able to treat them instead of locking them away. We know that the sheriff, because we've talked with them, the police chiefs and the district attorney are willing to participate in a revived Camden Criminal Justice Council and appropriately expand council to begin to address this aspect of this issue as it relates to mental health issues. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, can I get a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, just real quick before you adjourn, I do have 2 other things that I inadvertently left off. One is, this coming Monday, next Monday, we have the, Camden County Fire Rescue recruit graduation scheduled, for 6 p.m. Is that right, Chief? Down at CCGA, or no, the high school. We're doing it at the high school auditorium. So, if you have not got that on your calendar, let us know. We'll get it on there for you. We'd love to have you there. Also, next Wednesday, May 24th at CCGA, the Camden Center, EMA will be doing a hurricane preparedness town hall. So, and that will begin, I believe, at 6 p.m. that evening. So we'll get that on your calendar as well. Next week's going to be a very busy week, and we also have Citizens Academy every Thursday evening.
Thursday.
We got a lot going on right now, and the budget. So, thank y'all.
All right, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Julie,